Thank you. I just want to thank again for having me at this amazing conference. It's one of my favorites as well. And wow, to be up here on stage with two amazing women. Can't wait to get to Q&A just so we can hang out a little bit. I'm going to start off with a quick video.
In Southern California, we have a population of mountain lions that's increasingly imperiled. Year after year, mountain lions get killed across 8 to 10 lanes of freeway traffic. This wildlife bridge is all about connecting two large areas of habitat and improve the viability, the future for these mountain lions.
This is a bridge of hope. It's a bridge of opportunity that provides safe passage for people as well as cougars.
You're getting emotional?
We used to put the collars on when I was a kid. I made some of the greatest memories of my life.
We're at an active kill site.
P-22.
He's just up on the ridge, not too far from us right now.
This movement has lit this spark that people are reimagining landscapes in urban areas in a way that I don't think ever would have been possible before this wildlife crossing.
That's a trailer from a documentary that is being made about the wildlife crossing, and I love it because they infuse it with real movie suspense. I mean, we kind of know the ending, right? I wish we had that voice guy that was in all those trailers, but nonetheless. Again, thanks for having me. And we were told to tell our story, and I have to admit, I'm always more uncomfortable talking about myself. I'd rather talk about P-22 and the wildlife crossing, but I'll give it a shot. This is me at, I think I was about 9 or 10. And in putting together this presentation, I should have shifted it a little bit. Yesterday I was had a few hours to go to a museum, which is almost unheard of these days for me. And I just was in bliss in the Natural History Museum, although the butterfly exhibit was closed. I was really bummed. But I remember the last time I had really been there was about this age. If you grew up on the East Coast like I did, even though I'm a proud Californian now, your middle school trip is Washington, D.C. You get on a bus, and you go for 9 hours. But it was amazing to be in there and think of this little girl and her dreams and what she wanted to do. And, oh yeah. That better? Oh, okay. And it was interesting hearing the stories. I was told at that age I couldn't be a scientist. I was told I couldn't play baseball. Obviously, I'm a scientist now. The pressures I think that all of us face, especially urban wildlife, right? I mean, getting into the P-22 story, we're told we're crazy to build wildlife crossing. Why would you want to do something in an urban area? Why would you want a mountain lion there? We all know they're all in urban wildlife. But I was thinking about this little girl and what she set out to do. And it was also about this age a for sale sign went up in the woods where I used to play. And I asked my mom what it meant. She said, well, they're probably going to build houses there. And it was the first time I realized in my young life that wildlife could be lost, that their homes could be lost, that the natural world was not going to remain the natural world forever. And I trace that moment back to where I am now. Now, at that age, I went around and I collected money. I raised $5. I called the number on the real estate sign, thinking I had saved Indian Rock. I think you can all, conclude how that one ended. But here she is. And the face has not changed. I was actually putting this together like, wow. We were able to raise $105 million to build the world's largest wildlife. And that takes a village, and some of that village is here. Stuff here? Stuff is here? Yeah, there it is. But it also took that little girl being told she couldn't be a scientist and couldn't be a baseball player and couldn't do big things because she was a girl. And I think someone brought up the notion of resiliency. I think there is something to that, to our stories, and how, especially if you're going to be in conservation work, being told no is something you need to actively resist. But the journey I did want to touch on, which was sort of my personal transformation in this work, and it gets back to that age as well, is I grew up someone who loved national parks. You know, the neighborhood I grew up with, a suburb of Boston, best wildlife I could hope for was squirrels and blue jays and the frogs I used to capture in Lake George. What's great is if you go back there now, there's deer and coyotes and bobcats. They've returned, which is the theme of this conference. So, and I was growing up, that is not what we had. So I longed for these big landscapes, these Western national parks where I could go and see mountains. And that was a list I made about that age as well. And I feel so fortunate. I have lived and worked in places like Yellowstone and Yosemite. I visited almost all those parks. And so for me, most of my conservation career, since graduating from school in Boston and heading out west, has been in these landscapes, a Yellowstone, a Yosemite. And I do live outside Yosemite National Park, and it's my favorite place on earth. So this transformation, I find myself asking, wait a minute, how did this landscape become just as familiar and you become just as passionate about urban wildlife? You know, why are you walking around talking about the dating lives of Mount Larkins in LA? You know, how does this happen? I am not someone who's comfortable on the red carpet. In fact, I'm hoping I'm not going to fall in these shoes today. It just seems like such a weird conservation existence to be doing conservation work in LA. And that, to me, has been a personal transformation as well, and one I'm sure all of you are familiar with. And I think it is so important that this journey that we get, the journey all of us have been on, that the larger world do. You know, articles like yours on urban wildlife is so important in that this is what we all grew up thinking wildlife was. This is Hayden Valley, Yellowstone, one of my favorite places. But my own personal journey has come to realize that this is just as important. It's not that we give up on protected space. I am a big advocate for there are places where wildlife needs privacy, especially our national parks. But we have to reclaim some of that space for them, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here. But the reason I bring this up is not to convert you. You all get this. It's such a key part of my journey. That day I stood in Griffith Park with Jeff Sickich, Seth Riley's colleague, and he was telling me about P22 in 2012. My first reaction was horror. Like, get this cat out of here. I mean, what is he doing here? This pony rides the golf courses. But I had one of those life-changing moments that, wait a minute. If this is the best he can do, if the choice is between not existing and making a home in LA, then that's his choice, not mine. And it really brought me into this whole world of urban wildlife and why it was important both ecologically, which I think we all get, and socially, which I'm going to touch on a little bit in my talk. P22 has just been such an amazing animal, and it was really tough for Russo this year. I got to sit with him before he died and tell him, you know, what a difference he made around the world. He was such a charismatic animal, and he reached so many, and he allowed so many to do the same journey I did, which was wildlife belong in spaces that we weren't taught, and to reconsider that. And I think that has had repercussions globally. That's what we're seeing, which is amazing. I wanted to play for you another video. This is from his Celebration of Life. I mean, P22 sold out the theater like Taylor Swift in 2 hours, right? But I think for me, P22's journey is my own journey. We're both kind of wild creatures who found ourselves in a strange foreign country of LA and worked it out. And to me, that has lasting effects, and he, more than myself, has inspired others to, journey on this. What does it mean to have wildlife in urban spaces, and how can we do better to call them our neighbors? And this video to me shows how many people we reached.
Thousands packed the Greek Theater today to celebrate the life of P22, a famous mountain lion who lived for years in Griffith Park.
Only in LA would a beautiful wild animal like P22 come and live, and residents would demand and clamor that he be allowed to stay here, and stay he did for over a decade.
P22 is way more than a celebrity. He is an important ambassador for urban wildlife. P22's legacy will live on in his contributions to wildlife conservation and also our heightened awareness of how to live in harmony with nature. And he even got me to the Greek.
The LA Times calls him the most famous animal since Lassie. But there was 9 Lassies and there was only one P22.
I had the distinct pleasure of being P22's representative in Congress, where one of my highest priorities has been to protect more of the public lands that P22 called home. That work will continue with P22's spirit guiding us every step of the way.
California is demonstrating people and nature can thrive together.
We need to not just live in harmony in nature, but we have to recognize that we are nature. And what happens to them happens to us. We are all connected.
We have been part of one of the greatest wildlife stories in history, all because we realize the most important thing we can do for another being is to let them be who and what they are.
P22, you inspired me to become an architect so I could build more wildlife crossing bridges to support the movement of wildlife. Thank you.
He changed us. He changed the way we look at LA as he inspired millions of people to see wildlife as their neighbors. We are part of nature, and he reminded us of that.
It's amazing that he persisted for 10 years and that you all and everyone coexisted with him in an amazing way for that time. So I just want to say to P22, thank you for the lessons that you taught us. Thank you for the impressions you made on us. And thank you for the legacy you left us. Long live P22.
All right, and I want you to sing along with me. P22, P22, you left behind a lot of friends and cougar poo. P22, oh P22, all of Los Angeles is gonna miss you.
Rainn Wilson was one of the highlights of that. If you haven't checked out the full song, it's online. So this video, P22 is a remarkable cat, and what he demonstrates, and what I want to leave all of you, I know you're converted to the urban wildlife, choir, but how do we do this work? It's no secret. It's about allowing people to build relationships with wildlife, empowering different voices that you saw on that stage. And you've got to get over anthropomorphizing is bad. Stop. The worst thing I think conservation and environmental groups did, and this is what was schooled into me, luckily I resisted because I had animals my whole life and knew they were like people, is saying, humans and people have to be separated. I think we have to look at animals objectively. We are animals, we do share things. And if we aren't able to build relationships, then how are we going to care? And how, if people aren't going to care, are they going to connect? And I think that's what P22 showed, is you can have muralists, artists, hip-hop musicians, all connect to him because they weren't being told it was wrong. So to me, that is how you build a movement and build the Brad Pitt of the cougar world. I mean, and it worked. We got the receipts to show it. He was a question on Jeopardy. The day he died, he was trending on Twitter. Think about that. A mountain lion was trending on Twitter. If you were in LA or beyond, there were memorials going up everywhere, and still are. It was amazing to watch a city mourn this remarkable animal. Can you think of another governor in the United States who would tweet out grief over a mountain lion? Or how about Rolling Stone? Have they ever covered wildlife before? LA Times about the bold. Or to me, perhaps the most remarkable one is the Wall Street Journal not being known for being a green paper. Full spread on P22. And again, I bring these up not just because they're fun, but because they get at the impact this cat had if we just change our approach to how to get people involved in conservation. And it's not starting with the science, although I'm a scientist. It's starting with love and imagination. Because I think we all forget. None of us probably started loving wildlife because of science. I started because I watched Born Free and read The Wind in the Willows. And it's that imagination we need to capture that people do this so well. And again, we also have the receipts. It leads to action. The Wallace-Annenberg Wildlife Crossing broke ground last year. And I like to joke that my job, even though I consider myself a scientist, it's not my day job, my job is to make the scientists happy. Seth, are you happy? Seth has been studying this problem of genetic isolation for the mountain lions and his colleagues for decades. And we were able to do something to fix it. There we are with the shovels. And again, it captured the imagination of people everywhere. From, the media coverage in New York or People magazine. It was named one of the 50 influential projects of 2022, up there with the Human Genome Project and the James Webb Telescope, which kind of blew us away. But when you think about it, this urban crossing has never been done before. It's not that Wildlife Crossing Day is new. It's just that we were crazy enough to put it over one of the busiest freeways in the world. And this is what P22 inspired. We would not have this crossing without the story of that cat. We might have it with the science, but without P22, we would not have this crossing. This is actually a shot from yesterday. You can go onto our live camera at 101wildlifecrossing.org and see construction as it unfolds. It'll be complete in 2025. And what P22 is also inspired, I thought I'd take a nap after this, but I agreed to raise $500 million to build more crossings across California, the US, and the world, to bring private money to public dollars, which is the model that works so well in policy crossing. What I wanted to end with, though, is this personal connection, getting back to that, and how it can drive conservation action like the Wallace-Annenberg Crossing. Because what we heard from donors like Wallace-Annenberg or Leonardo DiCaprio or others that we worked with, it's like, wow. It's not just some environmentalists behind closed doors telling us we have to do this. It's not just white males. You built a movement around this. And they pointed to the public support from when we got those big dollars. Even the politicians, like Governor Newsom or Congressman Schiff, who have been amazing, they also saw the public support and knew that this project was onto something. And again, that is that P22 is a unifying force. And for me, it also gets to something that was my journey. I can talk about the ecology, we got the science. I can talk about how the public movement gets these things built. But to me, what urban wildlife comes to is it's a moral right of people to have access to wildlife. And I grew up in these places where, or worked in these places like Yosemite or Yellowstone, where not everybody's going to get to. And we have to realize that. And so to recognize that connecting people in their own spaces is also a fundamental right to them, I think is really important because it inspires people. That little kid who wants to be an architect because of P22. There's some of our other in P22 Day building wildlife crossings. And we do a disservice when we say that wildlife in cities are less than seeing a grizzly bear at Yellowstone. So both ecologically, we know we have a case for, but socially it's imperative. And I'll end with this story in this video to show you why to me it's so important. As I said, I grew up in the suburb of Boston, kind of lower middle class, but we had everything. We had a house, I had pets. And, you know, the problems I faced in second grade were a boy might not like me or I got a bad grade. And I would go to those woods that I tried to save, and if I had a bad day, and look at the frogs or go down and see the turtles in the river. And that brought me a psychological safety, right? It brought me the peace that I needed in life. These kids I'm about.
My letter starts with, Dear P22, I know that you crossed the freeway without getting hurt. I think it was amazing that you crossed the freeway. Now you can back to the Santa Monica Mountain. Why did you cross the freeway? Why do you have a divisor on your neck? Do you like Griffith Park? Do you like being lonely? And do you have a family? It's good that the scientists are going to help you. I feel happy that you are in Griffith Park. It's a nice place to live in Griffith Park. Love, Andrea Garcia.
My letter to P22 is, Dear P22, I know that you have been poisoned by rat poison. You should always try to watch your food, not always eat dead things. Don't think that the tracking device will hurt you. It will help you stay safe. I feel bad for you. I know how it feels to be lonely, sad, and scared. I've been there before. I hope you have a mate to be happy and peace and love. P22. How did it feel like to be in Santa Monica Mountains? How about in Griffith Park? Did you have a mate in Santa Monica Mountains? How lonely do you feel? Love, Rogelio Tunas. Thank you.
I know how it feels to be sad and lonely and scared. So to me, that's the work. That's been my journey. That this is not just a science problem, not just an ecology problem. This is a moral imperative and a social issue as well. And to bring little boys like that, the psychological safety I enjoy in nature is why this work is important too. So use P22 as a model. Find your P22. Doesn't have to be a mountain lion. And empower voices around it. Thank you.